everybody for coming out tonight for our event on the future of AI in banking. Can I get by show of hands how many undergraduates we have here? Can we split that into freshmen and sophomores? Juniors, seniors? How many graduate students or MBAs? Awesome.
Woo!
Yeah, so thank you guys for coming out tonight. A very exciting topic to talk about. With us today we have Jason Mars. He is professor of computer science here at the University of Michigan, where he helps run Clarity Labs, which is one of the world's most renowned, top-notch research labs for AI. He's also one of the co-founders and is currently CEO of Clinc, which is a FinTech company here in Ann Arbor aimed at revolutionizing human experiences through the most cutting-edge conversational AI for banks in the world. So I'm really excited to host Jason here tonight. I've had the wonderful opportunity of working with Jason and the team over the past couple of months. And they have a fantastic product and team and vision. And, Jason has dedicated his career to solving real-life, complex problems with AI at scale. So I'm super ecstatic he's agreed to come out tonight and share his experience with you guys. He's going to kick it off with a short announcement and his presentation, followed by a demo of their AI technology so you guys can see what it feels like to interact with Feeney. We're going to follow it with a Q&A session, and then you guys are going to get a chance to network with Jason and the rest of the Clinc team here. For the Q&A portion, we're doing a $25 Litecoin giveaway just for fun. But basically, go to this link here, slido.com, input event code Clinc, and you can ask all of your questions and upload the ones you want to hear answered. That being said, let's give Jason a warm round of applause.
Thanks, Rishi. Thanks, Rishi. That's awesome. So it's an absolute delight to be here today with you guys. Some of you guys might recognize me from the computer science department. It's been maybe a year and a half ago I taught my most recent class that I taught, which was 370 probably. I also taught some compilers classes. I can't even remember now. It's like, each year is like a decade in this world. So computer science professor, currently CEO of Clinc, CEO co-founder. It's been an insane journey, and I'm going to share with you today some uncandid, crazy info on that journey, what it means, what it's like, how you do it here in the Midwest, how you do it in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and how you do it at a scale that is literally legendary, period, in the world, right? So what we've accomplished at Clinc already is we've broken records in this country for how startups operate, not just in Ann Arbor, not just in the Midwest. And we'll talk more about that. But that is just the beginning. It's been crazy. Anyway, so the topic of today is AI. It's AI in finance, in the financial industry. It's AI in general. It's making a mark in technology now and in a way that other companies hasn't. As you probably know, there's hundreds of companies that carry the banner of AI. And they're popping up all the time. And it's very interesting. They're coming from everywhere, from Joe Schmo on the street that flunked out of high school to Stanford professors that are jumping into the entrepreneurial fray. Now, being an entrepreneur, being a CEO, co-founding a company and leading a company is unlike anything that you can do in this world. And this is coming from a faculty member, a professor, who ran a 14-person group of PhDs and ran that group of PhDs in a way that is unlike anything, is unprecedented in computer science and computer architecture. So basically, to get tenure at this institution in my field, you need about 3 top-tier papers, right? ISCA MicroASPOS HPCA papers. You need about 3 of them. So I have 24 right now, and I'm coming up for tenure this summer. And that's record-breaking. I'm in the Hall of Fame at ISCA, which is the top venue for computer architecture. And I entered that Hall of Fame alongside full professors at other top 10 institutions. OK, so I can run large teams. I can do it in ways that is world, is the best. And I do it with my spouse and partner, Lingjia Tang. We co-run our organization. We co-run Clinc. She's the COO. And so we know how to do that. And when we started this company, we were not prepared for what it meant to lead a world-renowned company. And we'll talk about that more. But let's start with AI. This mic is really low. I got to speak into it like this. Can you guys hear me in the room? I'll just talk to you guys in the room. The mic is a little weird. I'm like, it's like I'm a hip hop artist. Anyway. So AI right now in this landscape, how do you be successful with AI? Well, the number one thing you want to accomplish, and I'll just talk to you, and then we'll open it up for questions, and we'll make it a discussion. But in order to succeed right now with AI, to have an impact in the world, it's not to do interesting AI. It's to understand a real problem in the world that you can impact and use the power to take large amounts of data and extract insights and actuate that data in a way, or operationalize that data in a way that creates value in our lives. That's the challenge that you want to look for when identifying a problem that's suitable for artificial intelligence. That's the way we approach the company, and that's why we've already beat IBM Watson out of the financial services market. We've beat Nuance's Nina, it's a $6 billion company. We've beat IPsoft's Amelia, that's another multi-billion-dollar company, and those are the incumbents in the space that we're beating out. Our competitor is Kasisto, Personetics. They've already, in just the span of 2 years, they're already looking for other markets. They're dropping the narrative of conversational AI. Not Kasisto so much, but Personetics have already given up. And we went head-to-head with them in the space. And why did we do that? It's not because we wanted to create a great company touting AI. It's because we focused on solving a problem in human lives, right? OK, let's back up a little bit and talk about how we got here. So I'm just going to bounce around these slides. So in the research lab, and some of you guys might be familiar with this, we created Sirius. Our goal with creating Sirius is a conversational AI end-to-end experience that you can talk to. It's essentially modeled on how Watson works. It uses as its reasoning engine OpenEphra, which is essentially the precursor of Watson. And then we added to that end-to-end system speech-to-text. We added an image recognition system that used image classification, AlexNet, VGG, whatever. If you look into the details of the neural network models we use for the computer vision component. And so we built this end-to-end system, conversational AI, because we wanted to study how future data centers should be built for that kind of workload. In the research world at the time we took on this project, the research world, the academicians, were trying to understand how do we take Google web search and make it 10 times faster, or 10 times more scale, 10 times smaller data center for Google web search. Everybody was working on that problem. And we recognized in our research lab that that problem is stale. By the way, we wrote many of those papers, right, on how to make web search faster or whatever, and understood that conversational AI was on the horizon. This is 2013, 2014. So we built this workload to understand how future data centers should be built. We released it to the world as open source. It was crazy successful. Hacker News picked it up. We were getting emails from all around the world as to how this platform could be leveraged to create conversational experiences for companies. An Australian police officer group were like, oh, we want to put this in the police cars. GE was like, oh, our mechanics that are fixing planes, we want them to be able to hands-free talk to, what kind of wrench should I be using for this? Nut? I don't know. Like, I don't do mechanic stuff, obviously. So it was clear that the time was ripe to have an impact. At the same time, we were building custom processors for the best machine learning techniques on the planet. We were implementing end-to-end deep neural networks that represented what we believe to be the next generation of software solutions for AI problems in the world. And we were building accelerators for these problems and had an insight that we could leverage to build the conversational experiences that surpassed where the market was. We wanted to surpass your Google Assist. We wanted to surpass your Alexa experiences with our conversational technique, and then take that to the world to make a bunch of money and to be famous, I guess. I don't know. We just wanted to have an impact. That's the euphemism that academicians use. We wanted to have an impact on the world. So we did that, and it was through the journey of being a company that we refined that approach into what we then realized. OK, now I've got a lot of good nitty-gritty details on equity financing, on going through the process of interacting with VCs, seed rounds, Series A rounds, how you structure the docs around that. How do you know when to use a convertible note or when not to? I've got interesting anecdotal stories about how do you dodge a second tranche. We did a tranche, if you guys know about this, we did a tranche Series C deal. We dodged the second tranche. Basically, our Series C investors could get 15% of the company for $750,000. We dodged that and instantly gave about 25% of the company for $6.3 million. And that maneuver was not easy. It almost created a fracture in the co-founding team. Very interesting story. But we did that. And last year we projected when we raised that round, we projected we'd do 1.7 million in revenues and sales, customers paying us 1.7 million. When we raised our Series A, they all laughed. Our Series A investors were like, ha ha. You guys would be the fastest growing company ever if you were able to hit that kind of revs and ramp revs that fast. That last year, we did $4.5 million in revenue. And there's no more laughs. Thanks. Right? This year, we want to quintuple that. Right? We're tasked to quintuple that this year. We launched product in September, just over a year ago. We existed at a company in September. That kind of rev ramp is unprecedented, not just in the Midwest, but in the country. It takes about 6.5 years median in order to raise your Series A, period. So we're doing it well. And we'll show why. But we launched this project, and then we launched it into the market, and I think this is a good time. You guys, what is this thing? Why did it work so well? What is this application of AI that worked in the market, right? That's what you're like, geez, what could be so cool? Should we play with it now? You guys want to play with it now or later? Now. It's like, I got to see this thing. All right. So what's Clinc building? Well, I mentioned we built conversational AI, a platform that we wanted to be the step function in these experiences moving forward. So I'm going to play with it with you guys today, and I'll let you guys decide if you think that this merits that claim of being a step function. Now, keep in mind that in the world today, if you're not Google or Amazon, and literally just those two, there is no way to build an interesting conversational experience that regular folks would want to use. Everyone is building chatbots that break. How many people in here have ever tried a chatbot? How many people actually type questions to your chatbot as opposed to click that quick replies stuff? Chatbots have failed, right? It's a graphical user interface. It's point and click now, right? How many people have talked to Alexa or Google Home recently? It's a much different experience, right? What do you guys prefer, chatbots or things like Alexa or Google Home to interact with using natural language? Chatbots, show of hand. Google Home, Alexa, show of hands. It's interesting. Anyway, building that is way harder than building a chatbot, and chatbots break all the time. OK, and that's all enterprises have to use today. So the financial services industry, that's all they could get. Microsoft Cognitive Services, IBM Watson. These are chatbot building tools. And every experience built on them is terrible. And if you've used a chatbot, you know what that's like. Well, let's see what the Clinc experience is like. OK, this is a web app connected to a server that supplies not only the conversational AI to this web app, but also to iOS, Android. I can actually demo the same engine on my phone, and I probably will, just because, to show you guys that it's real. But all right, let's play with this thing. Let me make sure it's working. Hey, so what's my spending like?
You spent about $8,800 3 months.
All right, that's cool, but I remember I was in California sometime in the last 2 years and I dropped a bunch of cash on food. How much was that?
You spent about $513 from your 3 bank accounts on food and drink in California, which is 0.69% of your total spending over the last 2 years.
Cool, cool. What about when I was in Ann Arbor, Michigan?
Talk to me about your bank account.
How much money did I spend in Ann Arbor, Michigan this year?
You spent $7.67 from your 3 bank accounts in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is 1% of your...
Can you show me those transactions?
Here's the transaction in Ann Arbor, Michigan over the last 15 days in your 3 bank accounts.
All right, well, I've really got a shoe problem. How much should I spend on that next month?
Based on your spending habits, you are $24.02 above your monthly budget to spend on clothing and accessories. This would reduce your balance to about $16,000.
All right, I'm also thinking about bumping my spending on groceries up to $300 next month. Is that smart?
Based on your spending habits, it seems okay to spend $300 on supermarkets and groceries. You would be 20.03% above your average monthly spending. This would reduce your balance to about $15,000.
All right, well, let me open a new credit card account then. My name is Jason Mars. I live on 123 Elm Street in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And what was the other thing I needed to tell it? Oh, that's cool.
Confirm your open account request. I have the type of account you want to open to be a credit card account. Your name to be Jason and your address to be 123 Elm Street, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Is this correct?
No, actually, my last name is Mars, and change that address to 222 Smith Street in San Antonio, Texas.
Let me confirm your open account request. I have the type of account you want to open to be a credit card account. Your name to be Jason Mars and your address to be 222 Smith Street, San Antonio, Texas. Is this correct?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, I've completed
All right.
your open account.
I'm gonna try something I never tried before. Could I get a volunteer from the audience? I'll take. What's your name? Alen. I'll take Alen. Alen.
It's A-L-I-N-D.
Alend. Ah, nice to meet you, Alend. That's a beautiful name. Hey, so what I want you to do is talk to this experience and try to open an account.
Okay.
So I'm gonna click it and then you talk to it.
All right. Hey, can you open an account in the name Alan Watts for that's
Oh.
Your name is Alan. What is the type of account you want to open?
That is not my name. Can you go back?
Okay,
please?
go ahead.
I just want to see how intuitive that is. I just want to.
Come in. Go ahead.
My name is Alan. Can you please open a bank account in my name? So it doesn't even.
Go
open.
ahead.
Okay. Can you please open a bank account
What
in
is
my
the type of account you want to open?
checking?
Say it again.
Can you please open a checking account in my name, which happens to be Alan Watts? I'm just trying different sort of phrases. I live in Ann Arbor at 50.
Okay, the type of account you want to open is a checking account. What is your address?
1520 Hill Street.
Let me confirm your open account request. I have the type of account you want to open to be a checking account. Your name to be Alan and your address to be 1520 Hill Street.
That is incorrect. My name is not Alan. My name is
Let me
Alan.
confirm your request.
All right.
I have
But-
the type of account you want to open to be a checking account. Your name
So-
to be Alan and your address.
Sorry. I'm so yeah.
I guess it does not
I doesn't
recognize
recognize-
like
I know.
non-American names.
I know. So I know there's always room for improvement. Love that, right? So the system just resisted accepting a non-American name. But that being said, yet I'm incredibly proud of that experience because that experience showed a resilience that's almost human, right? That's a human mistake. I asked him his name, and I made a couple mistakes myself. And even though it made that mistake, he was able to give it other information, the address and the kind of account, in a messy, human-style way. You know, that is something you won't see in the market. Right now, the best offering that's out there is scripted, please give me your first name, blah. Give me your last name, blah. And you can't correct it. You can't change information. You can't go backwards. And even though it refused to take the non-American name, it was able to capture all the other information and ask for a confirmation, and then ask for the last name. That is an experience that when you call into a call center, you have to have, because no one's going to learn the rules as to how to interact with your system, right? Now, you might see experiences that seem like plausibly close to that from a Google Assist or Alexa's out the box. But if you've ever used a skill on Alexa, you know that it's command-based. You know it's essentially a Linux prompt where you have to say open blah and blah, blah, blah in the commands-based rules system. So that's what we're doing that's crazy different, right? And that messiness and that resilience to human language is the value prop that we're bringing to the market that others haven't been able to do. Any questions on that? Feel free. Go ahead.
Not necessarily on that specifically, this might be a little off topic, but I'm curious because of opening accounts and various other things, what regulatory things kind of crop up in this space?
Yeah.
And where you guys fit into that?
That's a phenomenal question. So we're in production at a number of financial institutions. And opening an account is not part of those production features. Indeed, that capability was built in 2 days with one engineer at the request for a demo of an opening an account idea by one of our customers. So you're absolutely right. Things like opening an account, performing actions based on what an AI has detected is something that is treated a little bit differently than giving recommendations. And indeed, even giving recommendations is a very, you have to be very careful about that. So that, is it okay to spend money on shoes? Our production skill, the Alexa that is USAA's Alexa, is our AI, exactly that AI. So you can say messy, crazy things to it and it understands. And they've changed that to not say it seems okay or it seems not okay. They just say, well, it might be useful to know that you spent this much in the last 2 weeks. And it might also be useful to know this when you make that decision, right? Because of the regulatory concern. You don't want to be liable for what an AI does. And so we're still getting used to that kind of issue. Any other questions?
Why did you start using this conversational AI to finance it first?
That's a very, very good question. And this question has a lesson for anyone who wants to build a company. If you look at the market, there's 100, 200 companies that are like, AI, AI, AI. We're an AI company. And yeah, some of them are getting funded. But what we observed is in that noise, and actually this is where our Tranche 2 story comes in. But in that noise, we had a conversational experience. And I'll just put this up because this is the room that we built the first version, this financial institution use case. We wanted to solve a problem first. We were in stealth. We decided to go into stealth mode after we brought in the Series A money, which was only $450K to start with. We went into stealth mode against the recommendation of our investors because we knew that in this noisy environment, you can't just say, I have the best thing, here's a pitch, here's a sales deck, because no one will know that you're different. So we said, look, if we solve a problem, that's what none of these other companies are actually doing, actually creating something compelling. So we went into stealth mode, built it, chose a problem, and it was a tough decision. There's healthcare, there's automotive. We're doing automotive now, by the way. There's automotive, there's the police officer wanted something, GE wanted that mechanic tool. We decided to go after connecting people with their financial stories because that is cross-cutting. Everyone here has to deal with money every single day, and few of us know what our spending habits are. Few of us can reason about the decisions that we make. Do you know how much you spent at restaurants last week and how that compares to the week before? Does anyone in this room kind of know that? OK, a couple, good. I love it, yes. A couple, which is awesome. But for the rest of us, how much what if I was like, could you find that out for me real quick? You'd be like, hell no, I don't have time for that. However, if you have the empowerment of a conversational experience that you can just ask 2 questions and get that information, maybe you'll do it. Maybe you'll inform yourself that. So we saw it as an opportunity to solve a problem that perhaps a wide portion of the population has. We solved the problem and then unveiled the end-to-end solution at Finovate. We won Best of Finovate, by the way, with this solution. But we unveiled it in a way where we actually let people use it, kind of like that. We let people use it at the conference. By the way, AI companies don't do that either. The last thing they'll do is have the risk of someone poking at their technology and breaking it live. It's the last thing any of the companies would do. We did just that at Finovate, and we actually got the head of USAA to talk to our experience. That's why we're in production at USAA today. And Nina was there since 2012. Nuance is one of our incumbent competitors. Good question. Now we're doing automotive. So we have a deal that we're closing with Ford. Because you want to know why? It's hilarious. Ford and GM, on GM, we're having a conversation with GM. They saw demonstrations from Alexa from Amazon. A huge disaster, by the way, at Ford. Not too long ago, right before the holiday, the CEO of GM was in this meeting where they were demoing Alexa in the car. And simple things like start my engines, open the left door. Broke. The entire demo broke. I don't know how you could have a demo break. I'm sorry. Much less let someone poke at it. These were the trained people that prepared the demo. It broke like just hilariously. This is Alexa, right? Building on their own Alexa skill stack. Yes, Nuance Nina has Drag and Drive. BMW signed a deal with Drag and Drive. Expect that coming soon. Mercedes has a deal with Drag and Drive. That's Nuance's technology. That's the incumbent chatbot, programmatic nonsense. We're going after that whole market. Ford has pain with Drag and Drive. They were like, Drag and Drive sucks. I don't know why other people are signing them up, but they're talking to us. And GM, we're talking to them on the heels of that disastrous Alexa demo. You want to know who called us right after the holiday? So we signed this huge deal with USAA, right? And USAA for the Alexa skill. And then USAA is on the phone talking to Amazon saying, hey, Amazon, we want this on Connect. We want this in the IVR, right? And the IVR, the call center. And now there's a lot of pressure coming from USAA that's getting Amazon to come after us and say, well, what did you guys build? One day, we might actually have this technology in Amazon static, but good question. Good. Any other?
What do you think how much more time will it take until I cannot distinguish anymore on the phone whether I'm talking to a computer or to a person?
So it's happening today. People are trying experiments today. And the experience isn't there yet because they're not, we believe because they're not using technology like this. So we hope to make the experience better, but the experiments are happening today. That touch tone stuff, press 1 for blah, press 2 for blah, those days are coming to an end. Go ahead.
So Google, Microsoft, and Amazon, they have way more resources than you guys. What do you guys do differently than them? How come they can't just get your technology? How come they aren't building that you guys are building?
It perplexes the living crap out of me. No, I love that question because it's a good question. Guess what? If you want to build a skill on Google Home right now, what do you build it on? You don't build it on Google Assist. You build it on API.ai. I don't know if anyone's tried to build a skill on Google Home. But if you want to build a conversational experience on Google Home, you build it on API.ai, which was an acquisition of a startup from 5 years ago, right? And that's what Google offers the world to build their skills. Here's the challenge from my perspective. The challenge is to build great conversational experiences requires a lot of knowledge about how to wield machine learning and neural network technology to build a compelling experience. There's a few people in the world that know how to really wield those kinds of approaches to get you something like Google Assist, which I'm not impressed by. Actually, there's technologies that we have in this stack that Google Assist can't do, period. And so that's a barrier. And to be able to translate that into an organization hasn't been solved yet. I don't know if you've ever tried to build something on Bluemix, IBM's Watson. If you try to build a conversational experience, the tools they give you to build it are terrible, right? It's a rules-based dialogue engine. Their ASR isn't even that great, which isn't even a hard problem. And it's you have to first have a turn to get the intent, right? And then you have to have a turn to get each slot, right, that you want to fill in. That each takes a separate interaction, and it has to be that way, which mandates that you have a terrible experience. So you can't say something like, how much money did I spend in California last year on groceries, blah, blah, blah. You'd have to say, I want to know about my spending. I want to know about it in whatever town, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And so the offerings from these big companies, it just perplexes me. But it's analogous to, when Google had PageRank and there was Yahoo and AltaVista and all these big dogs. And PageRank wasn't a secret. There were publications up the wazoo about search algorithms and scoring algorithms for search, all in the academic sphere. When Google launched, for years they weren't an interesting competitor to Yahoo. But Yahoo still didn't implement anything like PageRank. And so there's something about these big organizations that, I don't know. They just get into this very rigid way of working, and they can't really address the market. It's a good question.
So do you see kind of like a lot of these other those larger players like IBM Watson, API.ai, they open it up to pretty much any developer can develop on their platform. It seems Clinc is pretty closed off to direct customer sales at this point. Do you see yourself in the future opening it up to the larger market, maybe any
The market is demanding it. It's not even up to us. And we're working on this problem. Now get this, guys. And this is my, was Clinc, Super Clinc? Log into this real quick. Well, I do. I can never remember all these passwords. Jesus. The market is demanding it. And get this. Isn't it a little odd, right? Like when you see Watson, you'll see this Bob Dylan commercial that looks awesome. But they'll never actually release a technology that is actually awesome. Like Microsoft Cognitive Services, there's no assistant built on it that they flagship. The weirdest thing about this market is they'll give the tools to build conversational experiences without demonstrating an awesome conversational experiences built with such tools, right? That's the red flag. We started the opposite around. We built an intelligent assistant, and we have tools now that we put into the hands of users. Now, get this. So, of course, this is the same thing. It's got the queries, right? Obviously, this is a dev instance because it's all jacked up. So this is like, what's this? My name is Alan. Yeah, poor system couldn't get it. But this is actually the same experience. But we put this training platform into the hands of our customers. And get this. We're going to crack the nut on conversation enabling an enterprise. No one has done it because cognitive services, TD Ameritrade used cognitive services to build Microsoft Cognitive Services to build a chatbot, and it's really, really bad. Oh, if you work at TD Ameritrade, just scratch that. But I love the company. We're working with them, actually. But what they build with cognitive services is limited by cognitive services, is a political thing to say. And the way we're going to solve this, the way we're going to fix this is we've created something called conversational recipes, right? You got to put training wheels on the complicated machine learning required. So we create these logical templates that you can build the meat around, and that meat can apply to any problem that you want to solve. So it's kind of a design pattern for conversational AI. And we're teaching that pattern in an educational program. And we're putting this tool in people's hands so that they can add to the brain. Actually, each one of these nodes in this graph has a neural network engine within it that uses bidirectional LSTMs to solve multiple of them, to solve distinct problems in one turn utterance. It's all kinds of good IP. We have 8 patents in flight around that IP. Nothing else in the market works like that. Go ahead. But we're putting that into the hands of our customers, and we're beta testing it. And if that works, we're going to put it into the hands of partners like Accenture. And then we're going to have a certification program where you have to literally get your AI certified through us, if it's built by us, for quality. Because we're never going to let some engineers build like some poopy stuff and then put Clinc's name on it and make us look bad. So we're actually implementing that this year. Question?
When you were talking to the AI missed one question that was context-based. So
Yep.
you asked a question, answer you, and then you ask a following question.
Right.
What was the one that couldn't get?
Yes.
How do you solve that?
Exactly. No. So the one it didn't get, and I saw it, basically what happened is my response was really convoluted in the speech to text. So it was convoluted enough where the system didn't recognize it. So the system said, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. So talk to me about your bank account. And that's a function of the data, right? The data that you use to train the system. So it's quite robust. So check this out. What was my spending?
You spent about $8,800.
What about last month?
You spent about $3,653 from your
During the summer?
bank account.
Okay, how about just on food?
You spent about $705 from your 3 bank accounts on food and drink, which is 19.3% of your total spending during December 2017.
All right, what about for the whole year, but in California?
You did not spend any money from your 3 bank accounts on food and drink in California over the last 15 days.
Which is the whole year, this year. What about all of last year?
You seem to be asking about spending history. You spent about $446 from your 3 bank accounts on food and drink in California.
In that last
Which
year,
is 1.18%
right?
of your total spending from
So
January 1st,
the context,
2017
and you could
to
change
January
any
1st,
aspect of the
2018.
context at any time as you go through. This is actually recipe number 1, talking about a topic, right? The opening account is recipe number 2, giving me all the information I need so I can act. So we have a conversational recipe for both of those, and every experience we've built is built on just both of those, and it goes far beyond everything else in the market. We actually have 2 new recipes that's coming out this year that I actually don't know much about, because like we have a whole engineering team working on it, and they don't tell me stuff. But we're over 50 people now, and we're growing to 100. We have an office in San Francisco, one in London, et cetera. Go ahead.
So it's your system, and it treated both you and Alan in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So how does it recognize the person through voice or?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there is a technology that we're compatible with that we haven't built in-house called voice printing, where you can tell who's speaking to the system from the voice itself. We're compatible with that. We haven't built it in-house. The Google Home has one built in. Alexa doesn't. But in general, we sit behind the authentication system of whatever the client-side app is. So in a mobile app, once you log in with your thumbprint, so we're working with Barclays and others. Once you log in with your thumbprint, then you can talk to the system. Now, if you're logged in with your thumbprint, and in some of these deployments, if you talk to, and then like your husband or your kid like talks to it while you're logged in, then that's an issue. But it's similarly an issue if you're logged in and someone is tapping around, right? So it's as secure as using current tapping your finger and using your voice. So you just want to make sure you log out of your app, you know, like you'd want to log out of your mobile app, and then you can automatically log out, et cetera. But on the voice in Home with Google, we have some integrations with Google Home where we use the voice printing feature to authenticate you before letting you talk to it. But that's a good question. Voice printing is the way to do it, in my opinion. Yeah.
What is your end goal? Like, how do you imagine your picture in like 5 to 10 years?
That's a good question. And that's exactly the actualization. I call it the actualization point of Clinc. Like, when does Clinc become not interesting? Where do we want to go with this? So our technology stack is a blank slate. It doesn't have to do financial services. We just proved it out for that problem because we think it's big enough, and that's where the money is. It turns out that money is hard to get. We'll talk about it in a second. But what we want to do is democratize the ability to create conversational experience that's as good or better than Google Assist. Democratize that. Because right now, nobody in the market can. Everyone has to build these terrible chatbots with cognitive services, like Microsoft Cognitive Services, and it's just not good. We want to be able to empower organizations with the training wheels to build great conversational experiences. So, you know, your TVs, all the software in the world, every phone line. The actualization point is literally being the conversation interface on every piece of technology. Good question.
So you mentioned this recipe that is about like conversational topic and whatnot. So is this recipe supposed to be one of the nodes on the graph that you pulled up? Is that?
No, the recipe is actually you can think of it as a template of node structure, right? So if I say if I wanted to add one about ordering.
Structure from one conversation bubble to the other response or something like that?
Yeah, so I'll show you exactly what it looks like. So I'll say pizza order, whatever. Create new competency, creating. Okay. All right, I guess I gotta get the case right. Pizza, Pete, P, okay. Did I spell it wrong? Shit. All right, let's just do payee. Payee is one. All right, payee. So this is one recipe. It's one conversational logical archetype. And so when you add one, you essentially add this entire subtree to the root node to add one capability. Yeah.
And so you said that there's a neural net architecture within each of these nodes. Is that? Wow. Can you briefly, like it's a pretty, I guess it's sort of a technical question. Can you briefly describe the architecture of this neural net? Like what sort of, how many layers do you have in there? Like what sort of techniques are you using? Like just
Yeah, absolutely. So we use a bidirectional LSTM for multiple problems. I don't want to get into too much of our IP, but you probably could guess what these problems are. One of them is identifying, and I'll say it at a high level, it's identifying the relevant bits of an utterance that you want to understand. So you can use an LSTM to solve that. That's a hard problem. And I'll show you an example of how hard it is. So that's one, but there's also classification problems. We've got embeddings problems that we solve. And the interesting thing about, I don't care, whatever. The interesting thing about the reasoning of this technology is the recognition. Now here's where AI, and just to get some insights from us, AI insights. You can't use deep learning to solve every problem. It turns out that what we're good at solving with our neural network is resemblance, recognition, right? So if it's, you said something and I'm trying to understand what it is, use a neural network for that. But for the logic of a conversation, it turns out that every sentence I say, sentence A1 and sentence 17 has to be logically consistent. Otherwise, you get confused and it doesn't make sense. There's a logical correctness that has to happen utterance by utterance. So using a generative network, a recurrent network, to generate or to predict what the next thing should be said will give you something that resembles something reasonable, but doesn't necessarily check out logically, right? So we do not use neural networks for that. And that's what a lot of the academicians are trying to use neural networks to solve. Although there's some interesting ways to kind of control what's predicted. Go ahead.
So what if you said that you don't use neural nets for that? What do you use instead? What technologies do you use instead to derive intuitive meaning from sentence one through sentence 17?
So we have a knowledge graph that we fill out, right? So for each competency, there's a design component of what the AI should understand. You know what relevant bits of information are needed for that to function. And we basically use a graph representation to fill in that knowledge graph. And then based on how filled in that knowledge graph is, we can activate certain functionalities. And I'll leave it like that. So it's essentially, I don't know what.
So are you mining this knowledge graph for insights?
Was that?
Are you mining this knowledge graph for insights?
So that comes from a design process, right? So you have to decide what is the relevant domain of knowledge, that relates to this competency, this capability. So you could mine to extract that, but to create something useful with purpose, we design it.
Hey, Jason,
good questions.
I just want to transition to the questions that people preloaded.
Oh, okay, good.
But thank you for that. The most voted question by far is how might artificial intelligence intersect with blockchain and in general decentralized applications, if at all?
Well, there's a lot of issues with blockchain. So blockchain has an interesting hype cycle right now. But there's a lot of open technology problems that need to be addressed. The fundamental issue with longevity, right? And when you do an audit, like being able to control the computational complexity of an audit of that chain. When you think about ways to apply AI to solve problems, it's an open landscape, right? There's so many, basically anywhere you need to have recognition. If you want to recognize certain patterns in, the blockchain, you might be able to apply some kind of neural network approach to identify patterns that resembles things that you want to look for. There's a lot of complexities that you could imagine if you want to create a regulatory body around blockchain, you might want to have artificial intelligence review all of the activity for a certain currency to find nefarious actors, and what does fraud look like typically, what's the pattern for various things. So I mean, it's a very open question, but anywhere you would need to basically take the large amounts of data and be able to extract insights out of that data or recognize patterns in that data, that would be a good use case to apply AI.
Cool. Okay, awesome. Last question, and then I'll let you guys ask them directly when we break out. Would be, so we hear these days that artificial intelligence is replacing jobs. A lot of students are wondering, will they have jobs? So they're asking, how can non-technical students get their hands dirty with artificial intelligence and stay ahead of the curve?
That's an interesting question. So, one thing that we have to understand is AI, and this is the I'm going to call it Elon Muskism, or Muskism, right? It's exploiting, and this is what's happening in the industry. We exploit the kind of lack of real understanding of what the limits are of AI to kind of get folks to be concerned or instill fear in them. But trust me, for most jobs, unless it's jobs you don't want to do, like the most mundane, repetitive job in the world, you don't have to worry too much about AI taking over that whole job. There's actually a massive opportunity for AI making your jobs easier. And that's what I think you'll find in practice, right? Instead of, for instance, one of the things that we're trying to address is, for customer service reps in a call center, as they're having a conversation with the customer, you can imagine an artificial intelligence driving content to them without them having to go look things up, right? It's just listening to the conversation, and it's just sending them the relevant content to what's being said dynamically, right? And so that's an opportunity where it simplifies your life. Another one is getting real-time reporting. Could you imagine if you go to your inbox, your email inbox, and it's like, this opportunity might lead to you getting like $5,000, like for real. Like, check out this particular email. I predict that if you do a good job replying to this email, $500 will just go into your account, right? You can actually, it's feasible to build models like that, right? That can actually guide you to prioritize in ways that can produce results that could be measured in a quantifiable way. So, I think that there's great opportunity to enhance our lives and to accelerate our productivity. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's give Jason a round of applause.
Thanks.
So before I let you guys sort of swarm them and ask all your questions about Clinc, or if you're interested in career opportunities there, I wanted them to go down the line and introduce themselves. They'll tell you their positions. And that way, if you have any specific positions, questions, you can field them directly.
Hi, my name is Nick Orlando. I went to U of M. I graduated in April of 2016 with a degree in computer science. I am a sales engineer and also do a lot of business operations work for Clinc.
Hi, my name is Kamal. I graduated from Kalamazoo last winter. I'm a software engineer. Did I say that already? No? Okay. I'm a software engineer.
Cool.
Hi, my name is Emma. I graduated from the University of Michigan in 2017. I did a double major in English and philosophy, and I do marketing for Clinc, specifically content strategy and demand gen.
Hey, I'm Ryan Liu. I'm a sophomore in Michigan right now. Studying computer science for part-time at Clinc. I'm here at summer. If you guys have any questions about the intern program, you can ask me.
Awesome. One more round of applause. Thanks for coming out, everybody.
Thanks.